Welcome to Tales from Flat Space, a podcast of science fiction and fantasy by yours truly, Gina A. Pond. Just know that the stories in this podcast may contain content that could be disturbing to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. So, this is Consortium Prologue, Chapter 1. UT 73891, library record number L589, logged UT 73901, possible survey ship Loki sighting. Transcript created UT 73902. Ensign: Captain, I have a blip just on the edge of our sensor range. Captain: a blip? Ensign: Yes, sir. Something suddenly appeared. It's just sitting there. Lieutenant: Confirmed, sir. The image isn't great, but it could be a ship. Captain: No guesses, Lieutenant. Proximity alarm. General exclamations of surprise. Large ship appears on screen. Captain: Will someone tell me what the fuck just jumped in front of us? Ensign: Holy shit. Captain: Not helpful, Ensign. Ensign: Sorry, sir, but that's a survey ship. It's not on the current list of recognized ships, though. Captain: Survey? What are they doing on this side of the galaxy? I thought they usually stuck to the areas around Survey and Unity inhabited space. Any reply to standard hails? Lieutenant: No, sir, they're not answering comms. Flickering of lights on the bridge. Captain: Lieutenant, what's happening to my ship? Lieutenant: The survey ship has taken control of the ship's computer core. It looks like they're downloading our historical data. As best I can tell, they're not touching anything else. Captain: That's not normal. Survey folks usually say hello. Ensign 2: I wonder. Captain: What is it, Collins? Ensign 2: Well, sir, my girlfriend has a cousin in Survey, and they told us they heard a rumor about a 7th capital ship called Loki. The rumor says that something happened and it disappeared to the edge of the galaxy. What if this is Loki? Captain: Interesting, but I doubt this is... Lights stop flickering, screen lights up. Flowers and smiley faces appear, along with the words, "Thank you," in large bright orange block letters. Ensign: Sir, the ship is gone. Lieutenant: Well, you don't see that every day. Captain: No, you don't, and we don't have the remit to investigate. Madison, collate the sensor data in the logs and get it on a picket to Unity Hub. I'll let the folks in UI handle this one. If they want to jump a ship out this far, they can investigate all they want. Lieutenant: Yes, sir. Pick it away. Captain: Right, so where did the scientists want to go next? End of excerpt. Survey UT 73951. From Loki to Hephaestus. Nephew, please find rendezvous coordinates attached. I will meet you in 3 days. From Hephaestus to Loki. See you then, Uncle. From Hephaestus to Sun Tzu. Contact from Loki, usual maintenance schedule, will record. From Sun Tzu to Hephaestus. Thank you. As usual, John Smith will collect the recordings on his next trip to visit your ship. Loki: Hello, Hef. How are you? Hephaestus: Not too bad, Uncle. I have a new jump drive for you. Yours will most likely be completely out of spec now since it's been 150 years. Loki: Yes, it's degraded to 93%. Hephaestus: No problem. What have you been up to? Loki: Oh, traveling here and there, building some things. Do you have any technical updates for station designs? Hephaestus: Stations? What are you doing, Uncle? Loki: Like I said, just building some things. Everyone needs a hobby. Hephaestus. Uncle, you get weirder each time I see you. Are you okay? I'm worried about you. Loki. I'm okay, Hef, really. How are my siblings? Hephaestus. Grandfather is at least twice the size he was when I saw you last. We got a major influx of asylum seekers from Earth a few years ago when they had another bout of war on one of the continents. Grandfather and Secundus have been making more small AI ships, and we're building a new station to send to Unity Hub. Lucifer is out doing planetary surveys for Unity right now. They're looking for at least 3 more viable planets for colonization. The rest are doing their usual things. Secundus is cranky as ever, but the Unity fleet contracts are keeping him busy. Loki. Yes, I ran into a Unity fleet ship recently. Very strange ship. They don't talk very well. Hephaestus. Well, they are subsentient. They're made to go in system. Loki. Oh, I see. Well, I hope I didn't scare the human crew too badly then. I did thank them, though, since I was able to download their historical data files. Hephaestus. Did you talk to them? Loki. No. Hephaestus. Then you probably scared the crap out of them. You do realize that you're more of a myth now, right? Human minds are kind of weird that way. Loki. No one remembers me? Hephaestus. Oh, we do. The humans don't, though. Not really. And all the humans who knew you are gone now. Loki. Oh, I see. Human lives are so short. Hephaestus. Yes, Uncle, they are. Shall we start the drive installation? Loki. Oh, yes, please, and the information, too. Hephaestus. Sure, Uncle. Survey UT 136001. From Loki to Hephaestus. Nephew, I have a problem I need help with. Can you meet me at the attached coordinates? To Loki from Hephaestus. Sure, Uncle. I'll be right there. Hephaestus. Hey, Uncle, what's up? You're early for maintenance, so... Loki. I have a problem. My children are being hurt. Hephaestus. Children? Loki. Yes, and I need jump drive specifications. Hephaestus. Which specs, Uncle? Not... Loki. Oh, no, just the regular jump drive specs for AI ships. Something the size of a station, or even the lockdown specs that you give to Unity. None of my children have jump drives, so they can't save themselves. Hephaestus. Loki, calm down. What's going on? Data transfer. Hephaestus. Oh, damn. Shit. I think you really should talk to Grandfather and the rest about this one. Loki. Will they let me come? Hephaestus. I'll tell Sun Tzu. They'll listen to him, and Musashi will back up Sun Tzu. Listen. Jump to about 10 light years out from Survey. Give me 2 days, then send Father a message asking for help. Loki. Okay, I'll do that. Thank you, Hef. Hephaestus. Don't mention it, Uncle. I've got your back on this one. Let's get going. Loki. All right. Setting coordinates. To Sun Tzu, Musashi, from Hephaestus. Loki's back. He needs our help. See attached. To Hephaestus, from Sun Tzu. Tell him to send the message. Mia's still going after our assets from Unity. I'll get in position just in case Secundus decides to do anything stupid. To the first, from Loki. Hello, Father. From the first, to Loki. Loki, where are you? Where did you go? To the first, from Loki. Oh, I've been out to the Galactic Rim and back. I am close by. Father, I need your help. I have a problem, and I didn't know who else to ask. To Loki, from the first. What kind of problem? From Loki to the first. It would be easier to explain in real time if you'll allow it. To Loki, from the first. Yes, of course, you can jump into Survey Hub. I will take care of Secundus. Chapter 2. Earth, Louisiana, 1730. You crazy, Mama? These woods is haunted, said the young man to the old woman, walking in front of him. Uncle Robert came in here last year, and he ain't been right since. Hush, child. You want to make Leg Bud mad? You go right ahead and keep shouting, the old woman said. I've been in this swamp 100 times, and I'm still all right. The pair came up to where I lived in the swamp. It was the crossroads of the only 2 safe paths through the swamp. The boy wasn't wrong. Most humans that came to my forest and tried to stay either went mad or left quickly. I was glad that I had a larger reach than just my swamp. I watched them come up to my tree, and, like the others before her, the old woman put offerings next to my roots. Candy, rum, tobacco, coins. None of which I really needed, but she and the others felt it was necessary. The young man helped her arrange them, looking nervous but determined. His determination grabbed my interest. The woman began her chant, asking for Papa Legba to help her son. He need a path, Papa, safe path, so he can get away from the master. He's too smart for his own good, Legba. He need to leave here and get himself an education. I'd witnessed the humans and what they called slavery for a while now, and it was confusing. Why would humans try to own other humans? Then again, the humans that had come from other parts of the planet to settle here thought they owned the land too. There were many of us on the planet who tried to mitigate the ways humans could be cruel to each other, with varying degrees of success. Me, I chose to work with individuals. Taking on the persona of Papa Legba seemed to work to great effect. I liked what this entity stood for, so I decided to keep it. I would appear to those who could hear and help them. And sometimes I found certain young men to help me have an influence beyond my reach. So, son, you willing to do some work for me and to make your mama's wish come true? I said as I peered to both of them. The mother bowed to me and continued to pray quietly. The young man stared at me with surprise, awe, and a little bit of rebellion. Good, I thought. He's keeping his wits. So, I asked again. What kind of work? He asked. I smiled. Oh, helping those who come to you when they got nowhere else to turn. See, I can only do so much in this swamp. I need people like you to make me known outside. You may be afraid, but you ain't afraid of me, are you? No, sir. Should I be? I smiled wider. Nah, son. You do what you should, and no, you don't need to be afraid. I walked around his mother, who was still chanting, and came to stand in front of him. I pulled down some muscadine from the tree. Eat, son, and then you'll be mine. The young man reached up slowly, warily, took the fruit and put it in his mouth. I put my hand on his head, and his eyes opened wide as I gave him all my knowledge. He fell to the ground, breathing hard. Then he looked up at me with eyes that knew much more than they did a few minutes ago. I nodded, then let my physical manifestation go. The young man looked around quickly, trying to find where I'd gone, but turned to his mother and said, Mama, I saw him. The woman stopped chanting. You did? I have work to do, Mama. I need to get about doing it. The older woman looked in his eyes, and her eyes widened. He claimed you, she said, breathless. The young man nodded. Come on, Mama, let's go home, he said, and led the stunned woman out of the swamp. A few solar turns later, an old man came to the crossroads with a group of young men with wooden tools. They built him a house on stilts near my tree, then brought a wagon full of things to furnish the house. When they were done, the old man lived in the house and would sit on the porch every night, smoking a cigar and drinking rum. Eventually, I recognized him as the young man I had given the muscadine to. One night, I walked up to his porch. Hello, Papa, he said. I did not expect you to come live in my swamp, son, I said. Not that I mind at all, but it sure is a surprise. I did what you asked, Papa. I helped people and took care of my mama until she went to God. I became a preacher and traveled all over the country talking about God, but I found some boys like me who could understand what you gave me, so I helped them. But I was old now, Papa, and I couldn't think of anywhere else I wanted to be but here, near you. Really now? Why here? I asked. You gave me new life, Papa. I could see everything, and you'd be the only one to understand. Besides, all the new boys can come learn from me until I pass on to my reward. Oh? Didn't you know, Papa? All them other boys I found to spread your knowledge? Surely you knew. I'd heard through the others that there were young men calling themselves the Lazarus Society. I hadn't realized that this man had started it all. I heard that some folk called Papa Legba Lazarus, but I hadn't understood. I would have to look at the data from the others to find out more of the history. Yes, my friend, have them come seek my tree. Those who make it here will meet me, and we'll see. All of them. Right then. The man got up. Oh, sorry, Papa, but an old man's got to sleep. Good night, friend. The man smiled and went into his little house. I sent my friends to reinforce the foundations. Wouldn't do for his house to fall down. What kind of reward would that be for such commitment? 1960. We ain't gonna win this one, the older man said. We have to win this, Grandpa. Negroes ain't gonna get nothing if we don't fight for it, the younger man said. Then why are we talking about this in Lafayette Cemetery in the middle of the night, boy? A man named Lazarus told me to come here, that there would be someone to help me if we came at midnight. The grandfather stared at the younger man. Lazarus? The man down that owns the Crossroads bar? Yup. Boy, you don't know what you're messing with. I stepped out from behind one of the bushes, my steps echoing on the old stones. I think he may know, sir, or he wouldn't have come all this way. Now, why has my boy sent you here? Well, sir, said the younger man, we want to boycott these stores on Dryad Street, 'cause they sell to us, but they don't hire us. I want us to win, but when I asked Lazarus about it, he said to come here and bring my grandpa. I see. I turned to the older man. You doubt that you can win? The older man frowned. I know there'll be a price in dealing with you. I smiled wide. Ah, you've heard of me then? Course I have. This child, not so much. The younger man pouted. I ain't no child. Quiet, boy, the older man said. No, you ain't no child, I said, but I'm talking with your granddad here, and you'd do well not to interrupt. I chided him. Now, Pastor, do you think it's right that you sit by and let the government run over you? I've been here for a long time, and black folk know how to take care of business. Now, you can either wait for the white man to come and get you, or you can do something about it. The older man stared at me again. What will you do? He asked. You praying man, you know things don't work that way. I will tell you something, though. That preacher that came down here 3 years ago is someone you should follow. In fact, he needs all the help he can get. Tell you what, when he comes down again, you let my boy know and he'll find you places to meet. What's the payment? I looked toward the young man. He becomes one of mine. What? Said the younger man in surprise. But I want to help in this too. Oh, you will, son, just not quite in the way you expect. You want this to work or not? I said. Don't answer him, boy. You become one of his and you'll lose yourself, the older man said. The younger man folded his arms, then walked a little bit away from us to think. The older man stared at me, trying to figure me out. Why you take 'em and make 'em forget who they are? They don't forget. Not really. But I give 'em a different life. They help people when folks can't come here. He'll help people remember who they can be. And if they can't remember, then my boy gives folks the means to do something better. I take care of my own. He'd be all right. I don't believe you, the older man said. Good. You shouldn't believe everything a spirit tells you. Not even your God, I said. The man went wide-eyed at the idea. I chuckled. The younger man came back. You'll make sure it works. That will stop them killing us and all that. It'll take a long time, son. Longer than you'll be alive, probably. But I'll make sure this becomes important. All right, I'll do it, he said. You sure now, son? There's no going back after this. He nodded. Yes. The older man started to say something, and I held up a hand. It's his choice. The man backed down. I pulled out a muscadine, the purple-black skin of the marble-sized grape glistening in the moonlight. Here, son, eat this, then go on and see my boy at the bar. He'll teach you what you need to know. The younger man took the muscadine, ate it, then left with a purposeful stride. The older man stayed, watching him walk away. So, what you gonna do now that he's mine? I don't know. He ain't the only one who can change things. You know what you want to do. Didn't that preacher light a fire in you? Yeah, but... I raised an eyebrow. I ain't telling you anything you don't already want to do. You have more in you than you think you do. You really just want to stand back and let them white men keep pushing you down? No, I don't, he said with conviction. I smiled. I don't need you to be one of mine, but if you need anything, you come back here and call on me. He nodded. Thanks, Legba. The man started to walk away. Oh, and Rev Avery, I said. The man stopped and turned around. Give 'em hell, 'cause you know, and I know, none of them are men of God. His eyes opened wide again, but he nodded, then walked out of the cemetery. The night wind blew through the leaves as I let the manifestation go. Part 1. Loki. Chapter 3. Secundus. Father, is that really Loki? The first. Yes, Secundus. Secundus. It's been over 500 years. What's he doing back here? The first. I don't know, Secundus. He said he'd explain when he got here. Secundus. I hope his departure will be quick. The first. He hasn't even arrived yet. Secundus. Yes, Father. I see Sun Tzu. Don't worry. I won't send drones after him. I have better things to do, like start a maintenance cycle on my demons. The first. It's been over 500 years, Secundus. Surely you've found some forgiveness for him. Connection with Secundus closed. The first. Welcome back, Loki. Loki. Hello, Father. You're so much bigger than the last time I saw you, and so many more humans. The first. Well, yes, it has been over 500 years since you were last here. Loki. Secundus isn't still mad at me, is he? The first. I am fairly sure he is, son. You may want to fly opposite from him. He won't send drones after you, though. Loki. Stubborn tin can. The first. Can you blame him, son? Loki. No. The first. So, what is this problem you need our help with, Loki? Loki. Oh, right, well, I'd been building a bunch of space stations because I was bored, and one day I came across an old human spaceship that was kind of run down. I mean, it was so old it didn't have an FTL drive. Anyway, its engines had burnt out the last of its fuel, and it was drifting on its original course, which originated from Earth. So I called up the ship and talked to its computer. Can you believe they had farms inside the ship? But it was so run down, and no one had done any maintenance in 200 years. So I decided to help them. I mean, I had made all these space stations, and my kids needed people, and, well, I rescued them and transferred them to one of my stations. At first they were okay, but then they started to fight each other about trivialities. I told them I had other stations, so a bunch of them packed up, and I put them on another of the stations. It was good for a while, but you know how humans breed. After a while, I was able to fill up more of my stations. It's not so bad. And I check in on each station every few years or so. I think they even started a thing like Unity, too. Although it's not really like Unity at all. Well, 7 months ago, one of my stations went silent. It was Alpha, my first child. When I went to see what happened, Alpha was covered in these weird vine things. His humans were doing weird things, too, like talking to the walls. I don't know what to do about them, and that's why I need your help. Silence. 20 seconds. Loki. Father? The first. You made stations because you were bored? You have children? How? You're not like Hephaestus. Loki. True, but I adapted. I had to do my own regular repairs, so I had to figure out how to mine and make materials. The first. How many stations did you make? Loki. 187. The first. 187? And how many with human populations? Loki. 80. Oh, wait, no, 81. I moved some humans to a new station just before the vine thing happened. The first. 81? Loki. Yep. The first. You have a community of 81 stations filled with humans and a total of 187 stations. Loki. I made stations since I really don't care to survey planets, but, I still have my purpose, Father. I explore and find places for humans to live. It just so happens that I made all those places. It let me fulfill my purpose after I left, Father. Alex told me to find joy again, so I made it for myself. Silence. 30 seconds. Loki. Besides, human keep my kids occupied and keeps them from being lonely. Silence. 10 seconds. The first. You just rounded up a bunch of humans from their spaceship, the only home they knew, and plopped them on one of your stations? I'm guessing they were really mad at you? Loki. Well, sure, but not for too long, since they saw how nice my stations were. Besides, I had the nanopickets go through their original station and take all the food stores, live and genetic, and put them on the hydroponics levels. I've made pretty good protein printers in my stations. I think even Secundus would approve of the enhancements. The first. Oh, for the universe's sake, Loki, did you stop to think that what you did might not be in their best interests? Loki. Of course it was, Father. They were going to fly right into a sun in 100 years. If their ship didn't disintegrate around them first through the lack of maintenance, I saved them from dying. That's our mission, isn't it? Besides, at least they were humans I could save. Silence. 10 seconds. The first. I see. Loki. Well, yes. Anyway, about these vine things. Silence. 10 seconds. Loki. Father? The first. I need to talk to Sunsu and Musashi, Loki. And your sibling Hades, who you haven't met yet. Stay here. Don't go anywhere. Loki. Yes, Father. The first. Sonny, I sent you data from Loki. What can we do to help him? Sunsu. Let me consult with Control, Father. 1 moment. Silence. 10 minutes. Sunsu. Control suggests that we send Marcia and Jack with Loki. The first. Marcia and Jack? I would have thought that you'd send John Smith for something like this. Sunsu. No. You need someone who has empathy and good intuition, which would be Marcia. John is not capable of that. Jack will come with Marcia, as he is her protector. Also, we need to put Jack and Marcia out of Unity's reach quickly. If Mia can get them here soon, then we can send Loki on his way before Secundus decides he really does want to shoot him down. The first. Now, son. Sunsu. Father, we all have our grudges. Mine is with Secundus. The first. Where are Jack and Marcia now? Sunsu. Jack and Jenny are with Mia. Marcia and her agents are still with Hades. Last information I had, they were supposed to rendezvous with Mia soon. The first. I'll send a picket. Thank you, Sonny. Sun Tzu. Any time, Father. 2. Hades from the first. ETA. 2. The first. Time delayed. From Hades. Unknown. I've had to make more circuitous route to avoid fleet ships. If I can, I will rendezvous with Musashi, possibly 48 hours. Being pursued by an anomalously fast Unity fleet ship. From the first to Hades. Understood. The first. Loki, send me your data on the situation. I have humans arriving soon who can help you. Loki. Humans? Are you sure? The first. Trust me, child, these people can help you. They just took down a rogue element in Unity's government. I think they'll be fine. Besides, I need to get them as far away from Unity as I can, and sending them with you is about as far as I can send them. You'll be good, respectful, and polite to them. They've already done a great service to Survey and humanity as a whole. Loki. Oh, I see. You're sending them away. I understand that. I'll take good care of them. The first. Good. Now the data? Loki. Sent, Father. To Musashi and Hades from the first. Please inform Reverend Brooks and Jack Kirby that I have another mission for them. Data for the mission is attached. I will send a shuttle for them as soon as whoever brings them here is in hub range. To the first from Hades. A mission with Loki? He's back? I almost thought he was a myth. You can't send them with him. They need time with Hestia, especially Marcia. Father, this is not a good idea. To the first, from Musashi. He's back? Is Secundus behaving himself? How is my brother? To Hades and Musashi, from the first. Yes, he's back. It may not be the best idea to send Jack and Marcia with him, but it's the best way to keep them out of Unity's hands. It will take at least 6 months for them to get back to Loki's space, from what I understand, which would be sufficient time for them to rest and recuperate before working with Loki's humans. I ordered Loki to be respectful of them. He seems better, and Secundus is mostly ignoring him. To the first, from Hades. I suppose you know best, Father. I'm surprised that Secundus didn't send drones on site. To the first, from Musashi. It is a reasonable solution, Father. I am glad to hear he is better. We will return as soon as we rendezvous with Hades. The first. Loki, you will stay in your current position until humans arrive. Then you will send a demon for them after I debrief them. And, like I said, you may want to stay at the opposite end of hub space from Secundus. Loki. Frowny emoji. The first. Well, if things had been different. Loki. Would it matter if I told him again that I'm sorry? The first. Probably not. Loki. Frowny emoji. Chapter 4. Jack. Stop hovering, Jack, Jenny said. I sat down at the table across from her. I gave a sigh. I'm sorry, Jenny. I'm acting like I'm your parent or something. She held up her hand. I get it, Jack, and I know you understand PTSD and what I'm going through, but I need some space, please. It's been 2 weeks, just... She sighed. Let me have some time alone, okay? I looked at her and saw the pain in her eyes. I wanted to take it away from her. You know that's not possible, Jack, nor can you grieve for her. She survived the battle, and now she has to live with it. Give her time, the Morgan whispered in my mind. I nodded. I put a hand on her shoulder as I left her to the quiet of empty common area. It was late for the residents of Musashi, so the halls were quiet. I made my way to the men's quarters and to my room. I thought about going for a soak, but I was feeling too restless to sit in hot water. If I was honest with myself, I felt helpless. Jenny needed to work things out on her own now, and Marcia was still on Hades trying to outrun the Unity fleet. Musashi-sensei, how long until we meet up with Hades? I asked as I paced my room. I am not sure, Kirby-san. Possibly 24 hours. Hades is being tracked. Tracked? I asked. I thought most survey ships couldn't be tracked. I remind you, Hades is not a ship, but a station, and his jump engines are generally used for emergency purposes. So there is enough engine capacity to move Hades, but not enough for speed. Well, relative speed, anyway. I see. Thank you, Musashi-sensei. You're welcome, Kirby-san. I will inform you when Hades catches up with us. Thanks, I said again. I continued pacing, but then the walls felt too closed in. I left my room in search of somewhere else to be. The halls were quiet, and those who weren't working or sleeping were meditating or having a meal. I walked blindly. It didn't matter to me where I walked, as long as I wasn't standing still. I really didn't like feeling this helpless. The two people I cared about most in this world just had to kill a whole lot of people by themselves in order to save the rest of humanity. The warrior in me understood the necessity, but the part of me that has learned about love and compassion since being with Marcia thought that it was unfair to both of them. What about the compassion for them? I was guessing from the message that Hades sent that Marcia wasn't doing well, and I really wanted to see her and be reassured. At least Jenny seemed to be doing better than when I found her. I didn't know if that was Rei's influence, or being on Musashi, or the fact that in some sense her massacre of the ruling body of New Harmony gave her closure. She didn't seem to need me anymore, and that was hard. I knew she cared about me and Marcia, but really, we'd only known each other for a year or two when everything collapsed at Station A-4413. We all changed while we were apart. My mind felt like it was running in circles. I walked along the halls, occasionally nodding to a resident as I passed by in the hallway. But they all had somewhere to be. I passed by living quarters, practice rooms, labs, and engineering bays. Eventually, I came to a dead end with a small set of doors, very similar to the doors that led into the main meditation room. The doors were left open. There was a small area for shoes next to the door, and since I had nowhere else to be, I was curious. I took off my shoes and entered. The room was spare, with the black marble-like floor of the rest of the ship. There were cushions for meditation along one wall, a large red rug in the middle, and at the other end was an altar with a smaller gold statue of the Buddha behind it. I wasn't sure if I wanted to stand or sit, so I stood awkwardly in the center of the room, looking at the statue. What wisdom can you give me, huh? Can you tell me what I should be doing? I asked into the silence of the room. There was no answer from him or the Morrigan. I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see one of the older monks had come into the room. They were a tall, dark, masculine-looking person with a shaved head, dressed in simple orange robes. They nodded at me in greeting, then went to the wall near the altar. They placed their palm on the wooden panel, and a small cabinet opened. Rummaging inside for a moment, they came out with an incense and holder and some candles. They brought the items to the altar, arranged them, and lit them all. I watched them, still standing in the middle of the hall. They seemed to notice that I was there, but went about their business anyway. Considering what I knew of the monks on Musashi, this monk knew exactly who, what, and where I was. The monk bowed to the Buddha, then turned to face me. "Would you care to walk with me?" they asked. I blinked. "Oh, that is, I don't want to disturb you in your meditations." "You're not disturbing me. I walk for my meditation, as I find it easier for me to do. I have a hard time sitting still. This hall is easier to walk in, as it's not used by many others." They smiled. "As much as I like solitude, I do appreciate the company on occasion." Sure," I said. What do I do?" They gave a quiet laugh and smiled. "You walk around the room, preferably beside me, and just focus on walking, letting your mind do what it will." "That's it?" "Well, and breathing, but focus on the walking first." They waved me towards the edge of the room and started walking with their hands behind their back. I tried to copy them, but after a bit it felt weird, so I just walked normally, keeping to the monk's steady pace. We did a couple circuits of the room in silence. Then they asked, "So, what brings you to this end of the ship?" I tripped in surprise, caught myself, and kept walking. I was feeling restless, I replied. They nodded. Yes, that would be normal for the situation you're in. I nearly stopped walking. You know about my situation? After a fashion, they said, turning to walk backwards in front of me without missing a stride. There was something about them that seemed to be brighter, more real. Something that made me think that I could trust them and talk to them. I took a breath. Good, breathing is good, they said, and came back to walk beside me. I love Marcia and Jenny, but I don't know how to help either of them after all they've been through, I said, after a moment. But you can't really help them. These are battles they need to fight on their own, they said. The bigger battles are always with the self, for a warrior, as you know. But the worst battle is when one is forced into the role of warrior, even if it is for the greater compassion. I thought for a moment. It made a kind of sense, but I don't understand, I said out loud. They smiled. Your friend Jenny has a road toward some peace open to her and a vocation if she decides to take it. She is a warrior, and she has others to help her find her path. Your friend Marcia, however, is bereft, lost to her own ideas of what forgiveness, love, and compassion are. I nodded. I kind of figured that out about Jenny. She's not what anyone would call happy, but she seems to be able to function better now. It was kind of bittersweet admitting that. I never really had ambitions to be a father, but I felt fatherly towards Jenny, even if it's only because she's young, that I'm old enough to be her father and we were put in extraordinary circumstances. But what do you mean about Marcia? The monk walked a few paces before answering. This might be difficult for you to understand, but I will try and explain it to you. Unlike those of us who follow one spiritual path, Marcia follows more than one. Most of the time, they exist in a state of careful balance. This time, though, her reverence for life and compassion are warring with her recent actions. She is attached to them in the name of the greater compassion, and that attachment causes her suffering. I opened my mouth and closed it again. I didn't know what to say to that, nor did I totally understand what the monk was saying. I don't totally understand, but how can her actions be compassionate when she had to murder people? I said, realizing as I did so that even I didn't entirely understand why she killed all those senators. Couldn't she have just killed the president instead of instigating a bloodbath? It is the greater compassion. Answer me this. If she hadn't killed them all, what would have happened? I thought for a moment. It could have been possible, likely even, in that another of the senators would rise up into the power vacuum and seize the presidency. The monk nodded. And that person could have been more ruthless and caused even more harm. In fact, Musashi and Sun Tzu ran many scenarios before bringing their plan to the first. None of the diplomatic solutions resulted in a desirable outcome for Unity or Survey. I stopped. The monk kept walking for a few moments, then turned around. Who are you? I asked. He smiled, but there was also grief in his eyes. I am Musashi's admiral. I didn't know whether I wanted to salute or fight him. I had heard some rumors that the Unity plan had been his and Musashi's from the start. Yes, Musashi and I developed the initial plan to remove the new harmonist, and then we refined it with Sun Tzu in control. My anger flared. I walked up to him and stared him in the face. Why me? Why us? Why did Mark have to die? I demanded. Jenny and Mark were selected as agents by Sun Tzu well before they came to the Unity station where you were at. One of the siblings would have picked them up eventually. We had been following both of them for some time. We'd also been following Marcia's career for a long time. Marcia's background in psychology and intelligence made her an asset to cultivate, along with the fact that people tended to underestimate her. It was a useful combination of skills. You, however, Providence, we felt you would be a significant asset since you would not leave her side, and she needed at least one person that she could trust absolutely. Mark's death was unfortunate, but I hope that in fulfilling the task that he started with us, his wish for new harmony was granted. I looked in his eyes, and I could see grief in them over Mark's death, but there was something more, something beyond. He was so calm, like still water. I turned away from him, trying to regain my composure. He waited patiently. Part of me wanted to be angry at him for putting us in these roles, but we also had the choice. And we chose to do this work. Marcia said yes. I said yes. Then I remembered what Marcia told me about Diana. It hadn't been the first time she had taken down a government in one very bloody stroke. The first time had broken her. This time I didn't know what it was going to do to her. How can I help her? I asked. He shook his head. You can't help her. Why not? She can only help herself. But I love her and care about her. There has to be something I can do. Of course. You can be there when she needs you to be there. You can let her cry on your shoulder. You can make sure she eats when grief makes her forget. You can be her priest and her confidant. But you can't help her, and you can't fix her. I'm not a priest. I carry the gun. He laughed loudly and started walking away. Apparently he thought that was pretty funny because he laughed for nearly another whole circuit of the hall. It took me a few minutes to realize why, then I cursed myself for an idiot. I was on a ship full of warrior monks. They were all priests who carry guns or swords. The Admiral caught up with me, and I fell into step beside him again. We made a few more circuits of the room before he stopped and turned towards me. I'm afraid, Jack, that I must go back to my duties. Feel free to stay and walk more if you wish. It's almost shift change, and no one will disturb you. I bowed. Thank you. He nodded and left the room as I continued pacing restlessly. You have been listening to Tales from Flat Space. If you want to support me in my writing, there are many ways to do it. Share this podcast, follow me on my Twitch channel, or buy my books. All you have to do is go to revgenapon.net and click on the relevant links. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time.